Sometimes you get crazy and you cut it off there and then you scream like a little girl.
I would bet.
You're gonna see the archaic and crazy methods of a madman that started out teaching himself how to do this.
This is the epitome of handmade because you about there.
There. If this place started on fire right now, I'd grab my 6-shooter and this drop and out the door we'd go. Moment of truth to see if we got the size.
Oh, the size is perfect. So people in agriculture do all kinds of things to make money. And on this week's Business Spotlight, we're talking to the Briggs family down here in Lima, Montana, that come from a ranching background, outfitter background, and right now they're doing something a little bit more unique. They're building custom leather belts. So they're going to build me a custom leather belt to my specifications today, and you're going to get to see the process that they go through.
Good, great.
Bill? Good to see you again.
Welcome.
These guys are old friends of mine. Some are older than others. I mean, John here is the son, so he's a young buck. And what colors do you have for me to choose from?
Well, really, any of these.
Yeah, I like this, and I like this color.
Good. Yeah. You know, the side of leather is one side of the cowhide, and it starts at the spine and goes down to the belly, of course.
Okay.
And the best belt leather is from the spine down about 2/3 of the way, sometimes 3/4.
Those are knife sheaths.
Knife sheaths?
Yeah.
Those are cool.
Yeah,
So
we
this
just
is a
started
knife
out
sheath.
those. They can get one to match their belt.
Yeah. Awesome. You know, you realize I'm a man of pretty simple tastes, right? I like this, though.
Good.
I like this pattern right here.
That's just an old traditional basket weave. Have you thought about stitching? Do you want a stitched edge
I would
border?
like the stitched edge.
Good.
What they're talking about here is there's a stitching of white stitching right there, which is kind of cool on both sides.
Any personalization?
Logo on here. I mean, do you think you can?
Oh, he baited you. I watched him do it.
I see.
Any person.
He's like, yeah, this is my logo that I have on my shops and my shaps and everything. That's sideways, obviously, but
Yeah. And then the only question is do you want it on the tip, or would you like to have it over your rear pockets?
I'd like to have it on the tip like this.
Very good.
Again.
Yeah, we can sure do that.
So these are the sides. Yeah, so this is coming from the spine side and working down. And then you can kind of see, like here was a little barbed wire. Probably got into the barbed wire a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
So, which,
Yeah, gives character to it.
yeah,
Right?
well, it has a tendency to happen.
Right
You're
here.
out there moving them and the dogs get after them. And
Yeah.
so anyway, we'll flip this guy over, and then you got your strap cutter, and so we were going to go 1.5 inches for you. So we'll set that, try to keep it nice and straight. Sometimes it likes to fight you to get going. Just like that.
Perfectly straight piece of leather.
Yeah, in theory. Yeah. It's a process that took a little bit to figure out. Moisture is one of the things that you'll fight the most if you don't know what you're doing. Like when you first start out, it's one of the trickiest things to get right. So you take it and you kind of leave enough so that the water can get in there, kind of get all up in the spaces.
Okay.
If you're doing one with the tip, a laser, you get a little bit more moisture than you normally would. So you just kind of get her in there, and you can see how that kind of seeps into there. And then you have a look just to make sure that it's, full length. There's not any dry spots. So it looks like we hit that one about right. And then like I said, we got lasers, so I'll hit it just a little bit more. And then that one's ready to start working on.
All right.
Yeah, we can cut it to length.
So there's the belt blank.
Yeah.
Like John says, in a perfect world, we want this leather to be cased correctly, and a real leather crafter would tell you how to do it right, but I'm going to tell you how I do it. You want to saturate the leather so that the water gets completely through to the center, so that the leather is completely permeated with water, and then you allow it to dry back until the surface returns to the original color. your belt is drying.
Is
It's
it?
looking better. You can see right here.
Yeah.
You know, and down here it's starting to get to the point where we can tool it. So we're gonna punch your customer number in, your serial number on your belt, the maker stamp, cut it to length, all that stuff. I think we're gonna be real close. So here we go. First thing I'm gonna do is dub these corners off right here just to kind of give it a tad bit more of a finished look. And then next I will install the customer number or serial number, so that tells you, you know, your belt is basically going to be identified by that number, and we can look it up and tell you when it was built, you know, what the features were, what we'll keep track of your size, all that kind of stuff, because we do have quite a few customers that reorder, you know, 2 or 3 years down the road, they just decide they want another belt.
Sure.
We've got all the info from their previous order. So 48.91, pretty special belt, Trinity. You know, I think back when we were working together with your horse leasing and I was outfitting, and neither one of us knew we'd be here today, but here we
sure
are.
didn't. No. That's another thing. You never know who you're working with, what you're going to be doing down the road, huh?
That's right. Here's our maker stamp. And I do everything upside down. The orientation, just because of the way I work. So I'll leave just a little bit of a space for a Chicago screw right there. Set that maker stamp in place. Whack it twice. And there she be.
Awesome.
Upside down.
Yeah, I see that. Now notice that horse is bucking. That's not like a premonition thing. I don't need to worry about that, right?
No. Yeah, and then I've got a little template here that I like to use to establish the length of the fold, and here's where we're gonna put your fold right there.
Okay.
Now I'll slide that down. This is where I hook my tape measure to establish size, and we were gonna build you a 30. Did we decide 36. On a 36? Okay. Now here's something Roland taught me. He said long time ago, bump that up about 3/8 of an inch, because this belt's going to dry and it's going to shrink just a little bit. So there's your center hole. Now I'm going to get my template out to establish the tip, and with yours I don't need this because we've already decided we were going to do a 7-inch tip, but ordinarily I'd throw that down there and then I'd put my ruler on there and I'd say, okay, a typical trophy clasp or trophy style belt is about 4 inches. There's the pant loop, and I'd probably bump it out somewhere out here so it's sticking out. People can see the symbol.
Gotcha.
But since we know you want a 7-inch tip, we'll just use the ruler and establish the cutoff down here. Take my head knife, whack it off. Sometimes you get crazy and you cut it off there and then you scream like a little girl.
I would bet, because then you cut off 7 inches too short. Right?
Get your little dots mixed up.
Yeah. I was just wondering that.
So this is just my own method of cutting the tip. I just use this little protractor and mark it like yay. And then I take my head knife and carve that line, cut it in. Sharp tools is another thing that is really great. I mean,
so what do you call this then?
That's a head knife.
Head knife. Okay.
Basically just shaped that way so that you can cut around corners. You do a lot of curved carving with leather.
Okay.
And it's really handy that way. Okay, so we got our length established. We know we're going to put your symbol on the tip. So I'm going to grab my wing divider here and I'm going to say, okay, Trinity wanted a stitched edge border. That means I need a little extra space in my edge border, and to me that looks just about perfect. So I'm just going to scribe that down I'd say about that far for your symbol. And then over here as well, Stop right about there. You're gonna see the archaic and, you know, really crazy methods of a madman that started out teaching himself how to do this stuff. So there's no book or no instructor that's ever gonna dabble in what you're about to witness. This goes down in history as the unique workmanship of a man, right?
That works.
There we go. Okay, then I'm going to tighten. Now this is just a little divider that I came up with years ago that's a little bit decorative and kind of separates, you know, the space for your cymbal from the tooling. It's a lot of by guess and by gosh here going on. Then back to the width for the edge border. Just basically scribe this right on down to the fold. Stop about there. See, now that's my personality at work because I'm not mechanically, my brain doesn't work mechanically. I'm a little more artistic, so I basically just eyeball a lot of stuff.
I was going to say, this is the epitome of handmade because you about there.
There is exactly right.
Stop about there.
Yeah. Now I've got I got my little swivel knife that I like to use for cutting in edge borders.
And so this thing has like a swivel. He means like this end over here.
Exactly.
Swivels like this. So when you put your finger in it, you can turn it with your fingers.
Right. Exactly right. Now, this item right here is a strop.
And what?
It's a strop.
Strop.
Yeah, so if you got your whiskers cut off, Trinity, back in 1967 in a barber shop, that old boy would have had a big long leather strop and he'd sharpen his razor with that. And the true sign of a guy that's been at this forever is you've got a strop that is in perfect shape because you've been using it for 10 years like I have with this one. It takes forever to get a strop in this kind of condition. So this is probably my most valuable tool, believe it or not, because it just takes forever. This is just the same leather that I'm using. There's some rouge that you rub on that, and it's basically got grit in it.
Okay.
And so it'll not only shine your blade, but it's also, you know, a little bit abrasive and tuning up your edge. So
a leather strop doesn't have just leather. It's got a little bit of grain to it too.
Yeah, exactly. I use the rough. I use the back side and glued it to this piece of oak. And then I just keep adding a little bit of rouge over the years. And like I say, with all this stropping, it really gets a shine on it and gets really valuable. So if this place started on fire right now, I'd grab my 6-shooter and this strop, and out the door we go. Use my line that's just a guide. Push the point in and come right around the corner. I'm going to be real careful when I make this cut because I want it to be nice and smooth. Good. Not bad. One thing that's nice about leather is you can kind of push it and shape it. So if that line is just a little bit off, I can lean into it and straighten that line out a little bit as I go.
Okay.
So now I'm gonna start right here. Now here's another thing, Trinity. If you can find somebody that can cut an edge border in consistently, reasonably straight, and it doesn't look
so tough.
Doesn't look like you've thrown a piece of spaghetti down.
That's not going to be me.
They've made a few belts, yeah. I'm actually trying to turn into the beam or into that line instead of staying right on it.
Okay.
Now the reason that works,
that seems counterintuitive.
It does, but it works in life too, you know, because a lot of times we try to be perfect when we first start out. And it seems impossible, and it's just, I've got to strop this again. what we're trying to accomplish seems impossible and we're really hard on ourselves. But in truth, if you just kind of keep turning back to that principle, in other words, if you have a goal in mind, which is the runway, and you're patient with yourself, you allow yourself to make those big mistakes in the beginning. As life goes on, you know, you're getting better and better at adhering to your goals and your principles. You know, if you're a God-fearing person, you're working hard to try to, you know, adhere to the 10 Commandments or whatever it is, that the principles in life that you believe in and you want to adhere to. You make big mistakes to start with, but if you're constantly thinking about the end goal and you're making adjustments to that beam, eventually you're gonna, you know, in a lifetime, you're gonna get there. And I've just found that as I'm cutting this edge border in, if I'm constantly making little adjustments to try to get back to the beam, it works so much better than if I try to be perfect and stay right on it from the beginning. Very good. Okay. Now we're ready to establish the geometric basket weave pattern, and to do that I'm going to grab my protractor again. And when I first started out, I really want to tell you that it took me about 12 tries to get this right, because when you're doing geometric work, you've got to honor straight lines that are parallel to these, because if you don't, it'll start creeping and crooked and, you know, roly-poly and whatever. So I had to get the perfect angle established to, you know, get your first tool mark sunk in there, and then once I got that established, then I was ready to go. And that angle turns out to be about exactly 28 degrees.
What angle?
This angle for the basket weaving. You'll see what's going to happen here in a minute. So now I'll just scribe a light line along there. Then I'm going to grab my basket weave tool.
Make sure he uses the Berry King.
This is the Berry King. Yeah, this is the good one.
Yeah, don't let him short you.
Okay, so then I'm going to lay that tool in there right on that line so that I get my angle correctly. I'm just going to lightly tap it in there and test the spacing first. And what I'm really shooting for here, Trinity, is I want this space between the point of that basket weave and the edge border needs to be almost exactly the same. And so you can see I'm a little off. I've got to fudge this one up slightly because I want that to be centered. So now I'll just work it up just a little bit. Sink it just a little deeper because I think I'm closer. And test it again. Yeah, see, now we're way better there.
Yeah,
Okay.
he's talking about this being the same distance from this line as you are from that line.
Correct. Yep. And then this, of course, has to overlap.
Yeah.
So now I'm gonna just kind of eyeball this, and when I set this, I'm looking for this space down here to be the same as this one, and then the next tool mark will fall right into place.
This is kind of like, you know, like a chef that says just check a sprinkle of this.
Yes,
And
that's exactly what it's
grab
like.
a little bit of that.
For me, now for John, he may want to do it a little different, but I'm going to be sprinkling if it's for me. I'm just going to kind of rough this back to the fold so I can take off in the other direction. And I got to rock my tool back a little bit so it doesn't bite. There we go. All right, now Now we're going to take this wing divider and we're going to set this distance right here because we want a reference line.
Oh, okay.
And that looks to be about perfect. So then I'll run down here to the other end and just scribe a light line, full length here. And that's my reference line. So now I'm paying attention to two things. I want to throw this bar right in on top of that one, and then the point right here. So here we go. And you can see that this space is just about right.
Yep.
Sink that. So I'm going to run this line all the way down to the tip. That's the way I do it. I don't know if John does it this way, but I'm going to run this line all the way down to the tip, and then I would establish another reference line up here for the next row.
Okay.
And full length.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now we're going to turn this over to John Logan, and
Yep.
we'll bring back the...
John's gonna go up and
Whack away.
walk away at it and get the rest of those lines there.
I
So
got
now they're gonna put the logo in here, right?
Yeah, I need to go
Right.
find. Hey, Bob, where'd you put that?
In this
mask
part
in
right here.
through? That laser is obviously not good for your eyes, you know,
Right.
about like staring into the sun.
Right.
So it's kind of hard to be able to see it, but it runs back and forth on the same principle as a laser printer, but instead of putting ink down, you know, it actually burns. So it's funny because you get in here and you about think you're branded.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Cool.
Yeah.
Making a keeper.
We usually try to use the same leather that we cut off the tip of your belt so the leather will match.
How many times have you cut yourself doing this? How many times have you cut yourself doing this?
You know, I'm really terrified, and so I'm pretty darn careful.
Yeah.
But once again, this is just kind of my own method that I came up with years ago.
To kind of get the length right and stuff.
Right. So it's kind of a custom fit to your belt. Basically using double the thickness here. Set the diameter. Mark that with my thumb, another really high-tech method.
It's
I'm going to skive this down because I don't want a lot of thickness. Extra thickness, you know, give you a bump there where you don't really want a bump. So I'll skive this down on both ends, and then it'll blend, kind of overlap and be about the same thickness. Another value of a head knife is you can skive with it. So now you can kind of see that when that folds over, this area is about the same as that, thickness wise. Get that little extra piece off. Then I'll take my edger and knock these edges off.
And it just rounds off the corners of the
Correct. Yeah.
leather.
Mark a lot. Most people wouldn't call it that. I use it to mark a lot.
Yeah, there you go.
These are just some little decorative lines that I'll cut in, you know, just so it's not plain. And for some reason, I tend to like the look of this with a keeper because obviously it's not a big enough area to be able to tool to match your belt.
Right, right.
Good. Then I got some, this is called Wyoming Quick Slick, and Barry King carries it right now, and we found it to be a really excellent edging compound. What it does is it's kind of like a little bit like Elmer's glue in that you take a piece of canvas like this, just shape it, roll it over the edge, and then rub the heck out of it. It creates heat from the friction, and that heat binds those leather fibers together and makes a nice smooth edge.
Oh, I see.
So it's not fuzzy. I'll do the same to your belt when the time comes. We'll glue that. So
Okay.
there's the keeper ready to go.
Alright, so this is the next part of it. We've got it masked, we've got it laser engraved. Now we're going to lay this marker on it, and I always like to do a little side just to make sure. And in the early days I would really lather this stuff on there, but I've learned that if you do that it has a tendency to leak out the sides, and so now I just touch it enough that it's all very well colored. Alright, we'll give that just a second to dry. There she is.
That's pretty fine detail.
Yes, sir.
Mm-hmm.
That's one of the real strengths of that laser engraver.
Cool.
Laser precision.
Yes. I was going to put a little extra accent on it there for me.
This is just something, if you see it, you'll know pretty well that it's a Lonetree belt.
Right there, huh?
Yep, and this little line. Done.
Gotcha. Very nice. So it's just going to dye the leather a little bit?
Yes, sir. Yeah, so this is a specific stain for this stuff. Give her a little shake. Make sure we got all the good stuff mixed up in around there. Pour a good coat in there. And this is where you really kind of press it down in there. Make sure you're getting a good thick coat on there.
Yeah, because it's got all those little little grooves and.
Yep. And then kind of make sure that this is even. You can see how it's kind of thicker on the border here than it is down here. So I'll go and I'll even that out.
Idle back when we get close to the tip.
You got to turn?
Yeah, we'll be careful how we turn. Then we want that last stitch coming around this side to be perfectly in the point. So I'll probably just wiggle that and place that by hand here.
Okay.
Just right there. Lift your foot, spin it. Go again. Okay, now we're going to come down here and stop across from our start approximately, and we're going to hit reverse. 2 stitches back to lock it. Right there, and then let your needle come down to almost penetration and bring it back up. That way the hook is engaged underneath.
Oh, okay.
And you get that final stitch is correct. Then I'm going to pull my knot to the center before I nip it off, and that way that thread will stay in place and not come unraveled on you.
Okay.
That's a critical step, believe it or not.
Oh, I'm sure.
Reach in here and get my little fingernail nippers. This is a slot punch for the tongue on the buckle. And get my big old mallet here and center it up and test it a little bit. Make sure it's centered before
you commit?
Commit, that's right. Okay, there's the slot. Now my hole punch for the Chicago screws. roll it over,
That is very nice.
mark the holes. Okay, now it's time to set the size in my hole puncher guide. Now for a size 36, I'm going to stay with a full 3/4 spacing. If you were a 32, I'd probably cut that down to half.
Oh, okay.
And if you
Yeah.
were a 45, then I'd probably go to full inch on the spacing of the holes.
Gotcha.
Good. Okay, now your keeper. Glue is dry.
So the glue is dry, and that's when you put it together?
Yeah, this will barge you. You want to put it on both surfaces and smooth it out and let it dry back, and then in a perfect world, you apply pressure. So a good saddle maker, when they glue their pieces together and such, they'll have clamps and whatnot and really cinch it down and let it dry overnight. And then they get a really good adhesion and a good bond. For this light work and stuff, as long as it's kind of dry, when you put it back together, that's going to hold forever.
Okay. All right, so it's all finished now, and
Yeah, we got the stain on the
finish on there.
keeper, so now I'm just going to kind of wobble these holes out I punched. Gonna put that buckle you requested on. Keeper first. Now Trinity, I'm going to take a wild guess and say if you take good care of this belt and we teach you about the conditioner that we're going to put on it at the final stage, if you condition this belt at least 2 or 3 times in the first year, and then from that point, whenever it's necessary, you're going to be wearing this belt in 25 years. Look at that fit, see?
Yeah.
That's why
Perfect.
I want to do every one individually so it's nice and snug. So there you are, my friend.
So I haven't had a new belt in years, so
Moment of truth to see if we got the size right.
oh, the size is perfect. I can see.
Oh,
Look at that. And we got the little end right there.
beautiful.
Perfect,
I
huh?
love it. I absolutely love
Good.
it.
Great. That's awesome, man.
It's
Well, this has been quite an experience and an educational one at that. Thank you so much, Bill.
absolutely.
Left-handed, but
Yep.
appreciate it. And thanks, John.
Absolutely.
All right, and if anybody wants a belt, you can go to
BigSkyBelts.com.
BigSkyBelts.com. I'll leave the link right down below, and you can check it out. They got a lot of different options, obviously, and you can have pretty custom all the way to more simple or different styles, all kinds of stuff. Plus get you one of those little knife holders there, right there. Those are pretty cool. So I appreciate it, guys.
Thank you.
All right, till next time.